Right, guys, welcome to episode 11 of the podcast, Aussies taking over the NBA. We've got a bit of a special episode today. This is going to be a season wrap of the old Benjamin Simmons. So, looking at his first year in the NBA, actually, well, second year in the NBA, but first year playing after a year out with injury. And we'll go over all the statistics of what's made this a pretty incredible rookie year. Just a reminder, you can follow us on Twitter at Aussie NBA Takeover. That's also the Facebook is Aussie NBA Takeover, and on YouTube at Aussie NBA Takeover. And SoundCloud.
Yeah, on hashtag the collective SoundCloud hosting us as Aussie taking over the NBA podcast.
So last year, Ben Simmons, the number one draft, was picked up by the 76ers after many, many years of tanking to get that pick.
There was a lot of tanking.
A lot of tanking. I think they won like 10 games one season.
Yeah, I think it might have even been 5 games.
No, it was 10. It was double digits, I'm sure of it. We'll check that in a minute. But just some horrible, horrible tanking. And he was picked up, a lot of hype, good summer league, and he gets injured before the season starts. And he's out with a fractured foot for a year. Fast forward to this season, and it's been a pretty magnificent rise, really, for Ben Simmons and the Philadelphia 76ers. He's come from learning about the NBA one season in the college and getting into the draft to really owning the NBA in many aspects of what he does. Some of the crazy statistics we're going to go over pretty soon, but I think the big one is really the 12 triple-doubles that he is the second most by a rookie in the NBA, overtook Magic Johnson in the rookie season for triple-doubles.
Who had the most?
Oscar Robertson with 26.
Oh, yeah. Old school.
Old school. I don't think many rookies are ever going to hit that just with the structure of the NBA these days, but Ben Simmons, pretty special. And, you know, a lot of those 12 triple-doubles came post All-Star when Philly had that terrific run of 16 straight to end out the season. But again, this was a kind of a story of the year for Ben Simmons. It really was three stages of the year. He started out very well to begin with, solidly. I don't think any teams had seen anything like him. A 6'10" point guard who would just bully his way to the rim at will and didn't really know how to guard a pass-first point guard that could fly by you if you defended it. At this stage, they still respected his shot. They still gave him a lot more respect than he did later in the season, especially towards the playoffs. So he was able to breeze past plays and went scoring quite well. Fast forward to Christmas break, teams have started to work him out. He hasn't evolved his game, and he's starting to get shown somewhat for some of the flaws in his game. We're still developing the whole time. And I think the All-Star snub really stuck a pole up his ass, and he just went, all right, fuck this. I am the best. And he came out of that All-Star break flying and just taking things to another level with the amount of triple-doubles that, you know, he put down after that. It was crazy and brilliant to watch. Double-doubles, 38 for the season. He was tied 11th with Embiid. Karl Anthony Towns was number one. He had 68 double-doubles.
That's a lot of double-doubles.
That is a lot of double-doubles.
Especially for a rookie.
Yeah. 4 times. No. Karl Anthony Towns. 38 for a rookie. Yeah. Well, Embiid, the thing is as well, you have to look at this. Embiid's still very much a rookie in the way he plays, I think. You know, he's played, 42 games prior to this season, his first real full season in the NBA. But he is another behemoth of the NBA in the future and still very young. 4 times Rookie of the Month. You know, just between him and Mitchell, I think we've seen probably the best 2 years of draft rookie number ones in a long time. I think they have been something incredible that we haven't seen for many years in the NBA. But I think Simmons has really brought something. I think Brett Brown as coach and that link back to Australia has made him feel home in Philly. He's something crazy. Like, he cracked the top 10 jersey market this year for an Aussie rookie which is pretty crazy. You can't walk anywhere in Sydney without a Philly jersey and Ben Simmons being on the back.
Yeah, well, I think that was pretty iconic. He just the rise of his pedigree in seasoned NBA followers, not just Australians. I mean,
yeah, but commentators just lap everything of his up.
Well, I think commentators, I mean, pundits and journalists even were very surprised. I was quite surprised at the level of respect he was getting. For his level. I mean, we're Aussies, and obviously we're biased, and we want him to do really well. But there was a really big outpouring of, oh wow, this guy is the real deal.
Yeah,
he had a lot of hype sort of going through the start of the season. Going into that All-Star break, a little bit up and down, but I think one of the things that sets him apart was his temperament. He
doesn't bite at all, and for a rookie, he's very level-headed.
Yeah, very, very mentally tough too. I mean, obviously the season ended in in less than great circumstances for Philly and Simmons, but you could really feel the level of respect that a lot of the NBA community in America were feeling for this kid, like he was one of their own, and I thought that was quite telling as to just how special of a talent he is.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I think that level-headedness. What he said to Embiid post the loss to Celtics pretty much sums up. He put his hand up and said, "Don't worry, Joel. See this hand? They're going to have a ring on each finger by the end of our time here." And I think that's a real testament to the belief in himself. And you watch his postseason press conferences, and he gets pushed all the time about his jump shot. Yeah. And we know that's a flaw somewhat in his game, and he's not a 3-point shooter yet. He's definitely got the talent to be anything he wants to be, but just the way he deals with reporters and the way he presents himself to the media, it's good to see someone level-headed. It's funny, I was watching the 60 Minutes special they did on him, and him talking about some of the challenges of coming to America, and he can't use any Aussie terminology for on the court.
Oh, okay.
Have you heard this one? So, he'd go pass, and they'd all look at him like he was a deer in headlights. And he'd have to say pass. And they'd be like, oh, okay. Just like, it's the same language, you idiots. Very, very funny.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Pass the ball. And he's just like, because, what accent have you got? He goes, well, I'd like to have an Australian accent, but you can't say Australian words in America because they don't understand you.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. Because that's one thing that I do look at some of those Aussies. I mean, Ingles is the quintessential Aussie guy. Bogut's the same, where nice ochre sort of guys. You look at somebody like Dante Exum, and you can feel that he's been there a few years, and his accent's starting to change a little bit. Some of his verbiage is a little bit different. So I always look at how well they speak the language, and obviously with Ben Simmons, how he's got such a good temperament. It's great to see that he can take these things in his stride, and learn and grow from them, because I think it'll really, really give him, set him up for the future.
Yeah, I think honestly it was kind of a travesty, him not getting picked for the All-Star team. When you look at what he put up in terms of stats this year.
There's plenty more years ahead for him.
There's plenty of years, and he'll be right there next year, and will work hard in the off-season. But we'll go through some of his pretty amazing stats this year, and talk about kind of where he sat in the league in terms of ranking as well. I've got all these here. So in points, he was 47th in the league, averaging 15.8 a game. Field goal percentage, he was 13th in the league. Now, that just shows you everyone, he's not a high scoring player, but it shows you efficiency.
Yeah.
He's a pass-first point guard. He gets the rim efficiently. Yeah. He's scoring efficiently. He's not wasting. He's not a Russell Westbrook that has to, throw up 20 shots before he starts getting hot.
Yeah. If
it's not on, it's not on. He goes to a passing game and a defense game. I think that's, again, a maturity side of things. That's something he will work on. Field goal made and attempted, 31th.
Yep, 31st.
31st. Man, that's just terrible. Free throw percentage. Yeah, this was not a big part of his game. It's something that he needs to develop. I think that's a really important part because the amount of times he will get to the line just from the size and the way he plays.
Yeah.
108th is probably not good enough. I think he was shooting at around 56%.
Yeah.
From the line this season, which
I think if he continues to develop his free throw, that'll also sort of benefit the way he shoots as well. I mean, if you're going to develop any kind of shot, obviously your free throw is going to go up as well. And I think getting to the line, it was an important part of his game, but also an important part of the opposition's strategy was to make sure they fouled him a lot. At the rim, don't let him finish.
Yeah, they picked it up early that he wasn't a strong shooter from the line, and that was the thing. Wrap him up, make sure he doesn't get to the rim, and send him to the line, and you're going to get a 50% discount on your play. Yeah. So that I think definitely backfired for Miami first round of the playoffs.
Yeah,
because he started shooting 78%, which was a lot better. Again, that just shows you the growth through the season. But we'll go back to the other stats. So offensive rebounds, 35th.
Yep.
For point guard, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Defensive rebounds, 20th. Again, for a point guard, absurd. Assists, 5th.
5th in assists. Wow, that's fantastic.
In the league.
For a rookie, yeah, that's absolutely fantastic.
I mean, for a pass first point guard, you'd expect that, but 5th in the league is elite.
Mm.
Steals 8th for a 6'10" point guard who
active
is
hands.
Very, very good at reading the passing lane, very good at reading the play. I think that shows you he's not nippy. He's quick, but he's not nippy. He's not got the same nippiness as, say, a Rozier or even a Kyrie who's 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah.
He's a big dude, but he can read the game. He can read the passing lanes well, and he'll get down low to defend, and that's the ability to get the steals.
I think his length too will really, being able to use his length will really benefit him in defense. I mean, you can have sort of oversized sort of guards, but they really need to be able to use their abilities and, to be able to steal at that kind of level, to have those kind of active hands at that kind of level really early on in his career, it's really important for a player, to fundamentally develop their ability to,
ball
play
security.
guard and steal.
I mean, ball security of his own is quite good. He's pretty magnificent when some of the plays like the through the legs pass to JJ Redick off for a 3 or the dribbling. It's just ridiculous. Like, just the highlights reel of him for this season would be 2.5, 3 hours long. I reckon. Easy. Just some of the plays, the ridiculous plays that he's made.
Yeah.
And it's very exciting. Blocks 41st.
Yep.
It's a respectable amount for a point guard.
Yep.
He was 5th highest in turnovers, but again, that's the nature of the style of Philadelphia, which is a pass first team, and Philly was number 1 in passing.
Yeah.
Ben Simmons most completed passes in the NBA.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
That's a big statistic because when you look at those numbers, you're 5th highest in turnovers, your ratio is lower than what it should be. And I think that's the big thing. He's a passing point guard. He will make plays, and he sees the court very, very well. So his actual stats were 15.8 points per game, 56% regular season from the free throw line, 8.1 rebounds a game, 8.2 assists per game, 1.7 steals a game, and just under a block a game.
So is there any parts of his game that he needs to tighten up and develop?
I think the glaring one is the lack of a jump shot.
Yeah.
I think his ability to score within 5 feet is astounding. As you can see, that one at his completion percentage and his ranking at getting actually, once he's going for the basket, getting the basket.
Yep.
But anything outside 10 feet, he's woeful. And it's not like it's broken.
Yep. One good aspect about that is, a willingness to understand that it's an important part of a rookie's development is to understand that he has a deficiency in his game. And I mean, to be able to get away without being a jump shooter for most of the season by deferring the ball and not just, yakking up shots, it shows a level of maturity in a player to, be able to accept that he can't shoot and go, okay, well, I'm going to, get my teammates involved instead.
Yeah, and racking up, 13 and 14, 15, 16 assists a game because of that.
Yeah.
I think where this really, really failed from a play perspective and where he was kind of really found out was in the series against Boston.
Yeah.
The playoffs, where they just did not respect him at all. That gave them really an ability to defend the post a lot more effectively. He wasn't able to drive, and he was then having to take really, really difficult shots from outside or really in the paint or just outside the paint. Yeah. And again, it wasn't falling quite as effectively as it should have been. So that for me is the glaring obvious one. I don't know. What do you see?
Well, yeah, I think inserting a system shot into his game, like into Philly's offense, inserting a systematized shot into his game will be really important this season, where it'll make defenders respect the fact that he can score from outside of driving. It'll change the way, if Embiid comes up and they run some sort of pick and pop from about 12 to 15 feet, that might be a way to sort of get him going. Essentially, he's just got to not worry about the fact that he can't shoot that well. He's just going to keep shooting. He's just got to find one shot, own that shot, and use it to sort of develop himself in the Philly system. And I think that'll be important. I mean, everybody wants to shoot well no matter what as an individual. But I think one of the reasons they sort of fell down against Boston is that over 5 games, Boston are able to sort of like hone you down and work you out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you need to be able to step outside your comfort zone, not worry about that. And I don't think his shot is really even at that level, which is a problem, but that's something he can definitely work on, I think.
It's something he can work on, but it's also something he was reluctant to do. Like in college, he had a jump shot. It wasn't good.
It wasn't NBA level. And I think, that's where I think the system will really benefit him. Like
Philly as a system will benefit him from doing that. I think if he was at Philly or Boston, that's where a system would benefit.
Yeah.
Cleveland, no.
I don't think, in an individualized system, I don't think he'd really develop that kind of mid-range game. But having big men like Embiid and, Saric as well, I think that's going to really benefit if he just works on, an elbow jumper or a wing jumper to come off a screen. And then also he'll be able to open up the floor by giving it either back to whoever he screens for Saric or Embiid. Essentially, he wants to drive past the screen, make two of those guys defend and respect his shot, and either shoot it or give it to the guy who's open.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. He's such an accurate passer and so reads the game so well, is that all he has to do is develop a 15-foot shot, and that'll open up Philly's attack so much more.
Yeah, any kind of respect, I think he's gonna have that room to be able to develop that, which is going to be really important for Philly, and I think they've got the big men to sort of work that out too.
Yes,
Saric and Embiid are both able to shoot from distance, which is really important. I mean, obviously he's run pretty effective pick and roll this season with Saric, and later on in the season with Ilyasova as well. But running pick and pop, it's a different sort of, and it's a different type of thing, and you could really see where it wasn't that effective against Boston. It's because obviously they didn't respect his jump shot. You could see that they couldn't really get it to work.
Well, they can't get it to work when you're standing 10 feet back from him, guarding the paint. So effectively meaning that he has to drive through it, and he got popped for a few offensive fouls because of it.
Yeah,
you plant and keep your hands in, and he got popped for too many offensive fouls. But again, that's the beauty of Brad Stevens. It was a very calculated move, and that's something that all he had to do was put up jumpers. And I think that's again, this is why Westbrook and Harden, if it's not working for them, they'll still put up jumpers, and it changes the way you guard them.
Yeah.
For me, Simmons not putting up those jumpers and Boston knowing that he's not going to put up those jumpers changes that game completely.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that should have been the call from Brett Brown, and just put it up. Rely on your guys like Ilyasova, who's a fantastic offensive rebounder, or Embiid to pick up the pieces if it doesn't work.
Yep.
But put it up, draw that guy out. But again, last 16 games of that season were just, I mean, well, they were fantastic to watch. 10 of those games were against teams that were tanking. So, you know, you take that with a pinch of salt. But I think that run into the finals of Miami, he played very well that series. Even with no shot, even with Miami being scrappy and tough, he got taken out midair. I think fell on the top of his back and head and just got up and started running. That's I mean, that's an Aussie kind of spirit. And just, fuck it, I'll get up and just keep running and keep going. I won't stay down and, you know, flop around everywhere like a good old James Harden and Chris Paul.
Yeah. I think, if we're going to see that kind of mentality from Simmons all throughout his career, I think he's only destined for greatness, because being able to sort of have the maturity early on in your career, acknowledge that you can grow your game, and if what's not working for you, you can try and get your teammates involved. You're obviously already on the way to becoming a much better player. And in that Miami series, they tried to really get under his skin. They really tried to sort of chip him out of the game, and he was just having none of it. And I think to be able to overcome those kinds of hurdles, it kind of gains you the respect of the players also.
Yeah. So, there's definitely a feel about Philadelphia as a team that they respect each other's game. They very rarely get frustrated with each other. Actually, you see more JJ Redick getting frustrated with people because of the way he plays and the ability. He really can only score off a screen.
And he's an experienced sort of leader in that team as well.
Exactly. He's, you know, the guy with the most minutes. I think that Philly gets stronger from here, especially with, you know, Covington being picked all defensive. Had a woeful...
Yeah, he wasn't.
Woeful offensive. But again, he's there for his defense. He's a fantastic defender. Long arms, reads passing lanes well, defends well, and knows when to wrap people up at the right time as well. Saric is really coming to his own as a power forward. That game they played against Boston, where they played like an 80s NBA team, it was Saric playing old school power forward, back down basketball. And that showed to me that he's top 30 or 40 players in the NBA. For me, Dario Saric, and young, and coming from, you know, this is his second year, going into his third season. Good potential, 6'10", jumps 6'7", but you know, big guy, big unit, and can score from outside the arc, which I think is really, really necessary. But they all play where they've all got their association, what they need to do, and the team is built around Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid's like that ISO kind of Kevin Durant style that
in the post,
in the post, and you can just lob it into him, and he's got so many skills for a big man that's played 46 NBA games before the start of this year.
Yeah, full games. Yeah,
full games. Like, you know, well beyond his years in terms of maturity and abilities. For a guy that started playing basketball at 15, and not coming from a basketball country, so. Good team, good future. Really working on that jump shot off season. And, you know, I listened to the season exit interview with Brett Brown, and it wasn't really about anyone else but Ben Simmons. I think that's what the media really want to know is, what are you going to do to fix Ben Simmons? Because they all want him to be the next LeBron James. Yeah. You know, obviously as LeBron gets older, his shot is becoming superb. Like, he's getting so much better from beyond the arc. His pull-up jumpers are fantastic. His fade jumpers are amazing to watch, and he can still get to the rim. So he's scoring a lot more. That's where they want to see Ben Simmons, but they want to see Ben Simmons like that tomorrow. Yeah, not in, you know, in his 15th year in the NBA. Yeah. So I very much like the year that he had. It was exciting to watch. We can go on and talk about the playoffs now. Really, that Miami series. 18.2 points per game, 10.6 rebounds, 9 assists, averaging just under a triple-double. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Fantastic for a rookie. I mean, I don't know how many more superlatives we can sort of throw at the guy, but I really don't think we're going to realize just how incredible that season was for a few years, until we can sort of gain the scope of his career as it sort of starts to take off.
Like, you just don't know what next season's going to hold.
No, and I think that's one of the most exciting parts about his game, is that there is a slot there that's right. you have a level to get to, or you have something to achieve at the end of this season, which is the jump shot. And then, we'll see him next season, and who knows the heights he'll hit in that season. And then, there might be another aspect of his game to develop the next season, and then the next season. And I think he's only going to grow into a much better player. I think this is the worst you're ever going to see him.
Which is just absurd to think of. I mean, in that Boston series, his rookie came out a bit.
Yeah.
Some silly turnovers cost them a couple of games. Again, it wasn't just him, it was Embiid as well.
Oh, as a team, that was the first year they had been to the finals in, God knows how long.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if, you could look at this team as a project, but they're still only sort of on the upswing of the project.
This is what I mean. They thought this year was, when they obviously started this year, a goal was just to get to the playoffs.
Yeah.
Pre All-Star, they were a 480 to 500 team in the Eastern Conference, which is probably good enough to sneak you into 8th or 7th.
Yeah.
They went to a 640 team and got to 3rd.
Yeah.
Behind the Raptors, who are the greatest chokers of all time, and the Celtics, who are coached by one of the best coaches in
definitely.
the NBA, and LeBron featuring some people. That's really what it was.
Yeah.
And that last game, the 132-130 game against Cleveland, was fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
To end the season for me, that was just epic to watch. And it was it was LeBron Jr. versus LeBron Sr. for my mind, and it was awesome.
It was almost like LeBron acknowledging the fact that he knew he could see himself in Simmons, and encouraging, them to put on a spectacle and to make sure, both teams played as well on offense as they could. And you look at how good Ben Simmons is, and, he's already getting the respect of LeBron James. And even that's a massive thing. I mean, you'd probably take that for granted, the fact that most of the other NBA players already respect this guy as, cool, calm and collected, and, so talented, which, it's important when you're starting your career. I mean, you don't want to be known as someone who's
hot-headed or, just a brat. The brat factor could be there. I mean, he's got a pretty down-to-earth family who are with him at all stages, which kind of makes it nice. And his coach was also coached his dad at South Melbourne, I think, back in the
AFL or NBA?
NBL.
Yeah.
Back in the old Aussie basketball league. So 2.4 steals a game. I definitely see him taking out a steal title in some year.
Yeah.
He's just the way he reads the game.
Just the speed and the length. I mean, and the smartness, you can see it ticking over in his mind. And that's another part of his maturity, is being able to see things on the court, work them out. That also makes you think of him as a very promising prospect, because he's shown this season that he's been presented with a puzzle, he's worked it out, and then he's grown as a result of that.
He's definitely miles better than when he started the season.
Yeah.
Which is an enormous thing to say, because he was still pretty bloody good at the start of the season.
And Miami's defense really didn't have much of an answer, and he was able to get to the rim pretty well.
Pretty much at will. He was one of the only ones in that series able to get to the rim at will. I think Embiid, obviously coming back in that series, struggling with the mask. Redick really not being able to score freely. Bellinelli really not being able to score freely. It was really on the back of Simmons that he really got them over that series. Boston series, again, I think we have spoke of this podcast, and, I think that's some Brad Stevens magic right there, really letting Marcus Morris do the guarding, and Al Horford switching off at will and staying off him on the offense.
Yeah. They were able to help off Ben Simmons' man a lot in that series. Yeah. And even that game where Embiid, it was an old-fashioned sort of post-up game where Embiid kind of went off. Even then you could tell the amount that it was taking out of Embiid to play that way. Obviously, Embiid's coming off an injury. He was playing in the mask. But even Joel Embiid will have to up his own conditioning as well, which I think is going to benefit Simmons.
Oh, completely. I mean, that game, look, they could have taken 2 of those games easily. I mean, they could have taken that last game. They could have taken the home game, and they probably could have taken the game before that as well. I mean, it was a very close series. For me, the best series of the playoffs so far. Just interesting. It was nail biting every game, except the first game was the blowout. But again, Philly coming off like 5 days off, very rusty, not really knowing what Boston were going to do. Boston at home, Terry Rozier, shooting the house down. So great series. For my mind, it'll be interesting to see what he does in the off season to improve what's already. I mean, how do you improve on his passing game? How do you improve on his rebounding game? That's the things like the tweaking, the fine tweaking.
Yep.
Because, you all want to develop a jump shot, but that's not the most important thing. You have a team full of scorers.
Yeah.
You have Redick, hopefully next year. You hopefully have Bellinelli, Ilyasova, TLC, Timotei Luwaru-Cabarrot, who we didn't see much of down the straight, but he was warming up to something. So you've got these guys, TJ McConnell, who really blew the house down in that Boston series. I think he was the best player on the court when they started him. So that's really what he needs to do from a mindset perspective. But going back to what Brett Brown really was touching on the exit interview is that they've got a plan for him. The jump shot is the off-season plan. They will work on that with him. His conditioning as well is something that they want to increase because post, I think they really handled him very well. Post All-Star game, he was only averaging like 29 minutes. He was getting to a triple-double in about 24 minutes.
Wow.
I think one game he got to a triple-double in 22 minutes and just came off.
Yeah, so I mean, you obviously don't want to play close to 40
anti-LeBron factor. They'd won the game. Take him off. Let everyone else. And I think that really helped save him for the playoffs. He played with an intensity and a freshness in the playoffs. I mean, he is young, but he was able to play with that intensity. Yeah. It's just a shame Joel Embiid was so injured and coming back often.
Well, that's going to be a big factor next season. I mean, working on his conditioning over the off-season. Simmons as well, working on his conditioning. JJ Redick, I listened to a podcast today where he was sort of talking about how exciting it is to be playing with Simmons and how scary the amount of talent he has is. I mean, it was interesting from an inside perspective of an NBA sort of, experienced stalwart to just say, wow, this kid is really exciting. It's going to be great. Brett Brown's going to definitely get the best out of him. But back to Joel Embiid, I think, it's going to be important for him to develop a little bit more chemistry with Simmons. Yeah. If that's maybe Joel Embiid sort of not relying on scoring in the post as much, that's going to be sort of important because I felt like with Simmons, Joel Embiid, it was almost like Joel Embiid had to try and score, or if sort of at worst,
in absence of a jump shot, it was really up to him to post up.
Well, at worst, that was part of the mindset of the team. I mean, not giving the ball back to Simmons out of the post was the mindset of the way that attack functioned. Yes. Whether or not Embiid likes to do that or is going to hold on to the ball more no matter what, I think it'll be important for their chemistry to sort of develop something where the ball goes in and then back out of the post.
I think so. And again, I think that's youth and experience from Embiid is that if he goes to post up, he's gonna shoot. And that's maybe not the mindset you want to go into that with, because if he's at the post up and then you can kick it out to a player and Simmons was free that whole time in that series against Boston for Embiid to kick it out to. You develop that jump shot. Again, teams will move and contract and expand to his effects, I think. But against anyone who's tanking, it's an easy win from my mind. Yeah. And that seems to be the way the NBA is going. Bottom 4 teams in each conference will just tank to get picks. And we'll definitely see Philly top 8 next year, Eastern Conference.
I hope so.
They've got a number 10 pick as well this year in the draft. Wow. So it's potential. There's potential to add something else. Jonah Bolden coming back to the mix, which is a nice backup for Saric. For me, that means probably that Ilyasova or Bellinelli is probably going to be released.
Yeah.
and number 10 pick. Who knows? Young team. All can. I think one thing that's been very, very positive is that the team has not developed around Ben Simmons.
Yeah.
Ben Simmons has developed around the team.
Yep.
It's a very, very different mindset to a LeBron for a LeBron style player.
Yeah. Yep.
And that works very, very nicely and gives him the ability to see and run the floor a lot more effectively, I think.
And I think having the lack of that jump shot, while obviously, you want a jump shot in every player.
It's probably improved his passing.
Yeah, it's really helped him see the floor and see the way that their offense operates also, and allowed him to grow. Like you were saying, how is he going to develop his passing? I think this year was a year where he really developed, his vision on the court, his ability to find his teammates, and it builds your stock with your teammates too. If you know that your point guard can find you, then obviously you're going to move more. You're going to get into different positions. You're going to cut harder. You know that your guy's going to find you. So I think their team is going to have to look at Simmons and say, okay, that was a great year where he did a really good job finding us. We're going to let him develop his shot now and not worry too much about it. I mean, they've got to encourage him to do that.
Yeah, there's the games that you encourage him to do that in, and that's the games where potentially you're 30 points up and you take him off.
Yeah.
Condition him harder, give him a bit more minutes this season and say, right, we're 30 points up, go for gold. Let him, he took no 3-pointers this year other than heaves, which I think is a little bit, you just want it. That the crowd's wanting that. They're just wanting to see what it looks like. I'm hoping I get to see something of it this year. What I'm also excited about is the Boomers and what this means for the Australian national team.
Yeah, I think that'll be pretty interesting as well, how he fits in with Dellavedova and Mills.
Yeah, I think Mills pushes more out to that shooting guard.
Yeah.
Delly becomes the backup point guard.
Yeah.
And, Maker becomes this lanky wingman, Bogut in the center, Baines in the center. Man, it's an exciting team.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty interesting. That I think it's 2019 is the FIBA World Cup.
Yeah, we've got 2 games in Melbourne against the Dream Team as well as a bit of a warm-up thing, I think, on the back of Ben Simmons and the fact that the Australians now make up more than any other country represented in the NBA, which is really, really cool. For a country of 25 million and so many professional sporting codes, we are getting a good show. And
plus more in the draft as well, which is going to be,
even more in the draft.
Hopefully.
One thing he did say in his that 60 minutes is he wants a gold medal.
Yeah.
I think for anyone else other than America, it means something. I don't think any American, when you say what do you dream for, it's always the championship ring or the MVP.
Yeah.
But I think you speak to any Aussie, they want that gold medal. They want to beat the dream team. So Tokyo 2020 gets 2 more seasons. Two more seasons to develop, potentially pick up another couple of good young talents and prospects in the draft and develop then. And, Thon Maker will be in a couple of years. I'm very excited about the national team and what this means for Australian basketball as a whole.
Because, he had that foot injury at the last Olympics, didn't he? Yeah, so he was out for that. And the Aussies played pretty well.
The Aussies, they took it to the dream team. A bit of Dellavedova full court press pisses anyone off.
Yeah,
so ugly. But, again, they took it to the dream team. They were unlucky against Spain.
Yeah, and that was the bronze medal match?
Bronze medal match, yeah.
That was
again,
a bit of a boil over. And
it's a bit of a remnant of the Gasol brothers kind of...
Yeah, Ricky Rubio, I think, played in that game.
Yeah, Ricky Rubio as well. So I'm very, very optimistic about our national prospects and going into the FIBA World Cup, which I think is nice.
Well, I think there's a goal there too. If everybody wants that championship, there's a goal there for Simmons to, in 2 years, to be good enough to beat the dream team or to take on the dream team at least. There's a goal outside of the NBA that he has something to work for, and I think that's important for our basketball in general in Australia, as well as NBL hopefuls that might want to try and play in that team, as well as our guys that are playing in the NBA. So I that's a really important thing, and I think if Australia can sort of develop a couple more pieces, there's no sort of reason why they couldn't on paper take it to the dream team and maybe win. But
Yeah. I think we need one more shooter, one more potentially a spot up shooter or a catch and shoot player,
and maybe one more big man to stretch the floor a little bit.
Well, let's see what old Jock has in store for us potentially in the draft.
Jock Landale,
Jock Landale. Again, he's got good raps coming out of West Coast, so if we don't see him, maybe he'll be a pick and dump to go and play in Europe for a couple of years. It's worked for Jonah Bolden, so he's been well and been potentially recalled. So hopefully we see something out of that. Well, I think this pretty much wrap things up.
So what do you want to see from Simmons specifically next season beside the jump shot?
I want to see a little bit more intelligence down the back end of the season. I think if they get to the playoffs again, there's a couple of key moments that could have won the game. One is the offensive rebound and coming off the rim, resetting the clock. I think it had about 50 seconds left and they were 2 up.
Yeah.
And he shot again. I would have taken that ball back out and set up for another play, wound down the clock and really pushed it to Boston to then score in that last play.
Yep.
That, for me, is maturity. The other one was a few wayward passes that, again, tied Embiid, obviously posting up that whole game. That for me. But it's just intelligence and maturity down the back end of the season. Because, 82 games, you lose a game, you move on. It doesn't really matter. But it's intelligence down the back end of the season which does it for me. The other thing I would like to see more of is play setting with Covington and giving Covington a bit more screen time for a shot.
Yeah.
He seems to be scoring ISO a lot of over people.
Yeah.
And I think being a spot up shooter, being given the option or the ability to have a screen ran from him so he can shoot might be a bit better. If Simmons runs that play or if Saric runs that play, just a big body in the way to screen for Covington, because Covington's going to be a big part of that team. Obviously, all defensive team, and he's signed another 3 years on it at Philly. So that's what I'm hoping to see from him. What about yourself?
Yeah, so I reckon off ball, I think I'd like to see him develop a little bit more as an option as a cutter, and like you said, screening for their other guards, or maybe even screening for sort of Embiid to run some action where he comes off a curl, maybe for a mid-range. Defensively, I'd also like to see him get a little bit more aggressive, just a little bit more, get into the body of some people a little bit more and sort of, up his ability to get right in the face of some people. I think that might help him on the offensive end too, if his matchup starts to get a little overpowered on the offensive end. It might help him get some guys off him, because I thought, Terry Rozier in that Boston series was fearless. And instead of, sort of getting right over the top of Rozier, right, and he's sticking his chest out, getting right into him, he kind of, not shrunk, but
he held back a bit.
Held back a little bit.
I think, though, he didn't get the rookie. He got the rookie deal in terms of some of the foul calls.
Yeah.
He was getting called for contact that was minimal.
And I think that's a size thing in general, with the fact that he's an oversized guard playing on other guards.
Yeah.
That's something, that's a skill he's going to have to develop, where
you just got to become whingy like Harden.
Well, using his body, you're not going to bait me, mate.
Come on.
Using his body in a more sort of, intense way that is a refined way to defend. I think use his size a little bit more. I mean, he's very smart. He's got good active hands, but using his body on defense a little bit more, I think it will really change the mindset of some of the opposing guards on, back down the other end of the floor. I think it'll really sort of put people off their game, especially in the Boston series, like with Rozier. He did it quite well on Ellington and on Justice Winslow in that Miami series.
But again, a bit more of a size to size matchup in that series. Rozier's 6'1", 6'2", much smaller, much nippier.
Yeah.
Terry Rozier did have an exceptionally good series, though. I have to say, he was fantastic that series.
And I think his speed really sort of undid Simmons a little bit.
It did, and that's where McConnell came into the game. So there was an answer for that action, but it wasn't answered until I think a bit too late. I think that wasn't seen early enough in the series. And again, that game where he scored 1 point, for me, Brett Brown got that wrong.
Yeah.
He came in with the mindset that Simmons needs to learn. We come in with the mindset is Philly needs to win.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's the flip side of, they've met their goal for the year. They made the playoffs. Anything else is a bonus.
I think
I see that they get past that Boston series.
Yeah, it would make an interesting...
The run downhill, they beat the Cavs for my mind quite easily.
Yeah.
Against the Warriors, I think they'd struggle.
Yeah.
But against the Rockets, I think they'd win.
It'd be pretty interesting. I think they've got a lot of size. They'd have a lot of size on the Rockets, but the Rockets are pretty crafty. They're a pretty crafty team, and I felt like the way they lost that Boston series was very indicative of a team of the experience level that they were truly at.
Yes.
Like everything stripped bare. That was the level they were really at. Like hype aside, intimidation aside, the level they achieved this year was really the level that they're at. That's not to say that they can't, go up next year. That's going to be important to go up a little bit more. But I wouldn't write this team off to, perform at a really high level again, and then sort of crunch time, have maybe 2 or 3 years until they really get that crunch time stuff right.
Yeah.
You can't look at this team and say what they did in the regular season was so great that therefore they should be great in crunch time.
No,
because it takes reps to really build that.
You need to be there, and you need to pull clutch games.
Yeah,
and they were. They deserve to get where they were.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that flip side, if they have beat Boston, they beat the Cavs hands down, and they take that Eastern Conference. Probably don't deserve to win the final, but again, it's that fairy tale story that you kind of want to hear. So they did very well for the season. I think it's just exciting to see what will happen 82 games next season, because
hopefully he stays healthy for that Boomers 2019 FIBA World Cup and then the Olympics, because I'd love to see that. Like, I'd love to see him really give something back to Australian basketball so early on in his career, with a couple of the other sort of NBA veterans sort of fading out in their career, because that could be a really important step in Australian basketball.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, mate.
Cool. Thanks for that. That was a great wrap of Ben Simmons. Again, follow us on Aussie NBA Takeover.
Oz NBA Takeover.
NBA Takeover. I always get these wrong. And on Twitter. It's always good to see. We'll post things up from time to time and give you all the stats that you want to see from all the Aussies. And YouTube. YouTube's always a good option if you're at work and you just got the headphones in.
Yeah.
Oz NBA Takeover.
And hashtag the Collective Podcast Network on SoundCloud.
Indeed. All right, guys. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch up very soon.
Yep. See.